no sé si te importa a ti, yo me siento bien desde que nací.
Bien, 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 bien. El tiempo rodeado de cubanos. Imagínate, man.
Yo no sé si te importa a ti, yo me siento bien desde que nací.
3, 2, 1, we're live with Mr. Sidi Larbi Cherkaoui in Paul&Tonic. How are you doing, Larbi?
I'm okay. I'm good. Yes, it's been quite a rocky ride to be, working during these very complicated times. But I'm doing fine. Yes.
It's been a long time, Larbi. I've seen your movements around the world. I've seen your creations. I've seen your new projects, and I'm always proud and happy to see that you're doing so well as usual.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting because actually since March, a lot of things got canceled, so everything kind of disappeared. But then many things kind of appeared in place. So it was almost like for me like emptying the teacup and then having new tea be poured in. It made it possible to start a conversation with the Paris Opera. I was supposed to do a bigger project, Scheherazade, that I was really looking forward to, and it suddenly looked clearly that it wasn't going to be possible to be working with that many dancers, and so also the stage wasn't. Yeah, it was just like a whole transformation. So many new decisions were taken within our field of culture. So it was all about adaptabilities, like how to quickly be able to switch to be open to do something different than what I was planning, and maybe mourn these things, because there was absolutely 1 month that I was very sad about not knowing that I wasn't doing Starmania, knowing that I wasn't doing Scheherazade, that projects were just kind of like postponed indefinitely. Like, I mean, hopefully we're doing it next year, but you just can't know. So it was like finding the creativity and the resources to really do something that is possible in these circumstances. So for Eastman, for my contemporary dance company, I made 3 solos. I had been working with Kazutomi Kozuki, a Japanese dancer I love to work with for 12 years. And so I felt like maybe I really want to make something for you. And then I made something for another performer, Nicola Lihe, and also for Michael, for 3 people. So I felt like, this seems like this was still legal to do in Belgium, is to have a one-on-one with one dancer.
Wearing masks and everything, Larbi?
Yes, it was wearing masks and keeping our distances, but then we could still, I always say, like, we lost the touch, but we could still listen to one another. We could see each other. We could think together. So we were just using our other senses, the senses that we're still allowed. It was skin contact and proximity that were taboo. But I felt that's taboo. Everything else is still there. And I felt it's important to, whenever you have gone through the loss of a sense, the loss of not becoming blind or becoming deaf, you are dealing with it's overwhelming, it's traumatic, but it's also all the other senses kick in and they start to try and compensate and eventually take over in order to still be able to communicate with the world. So everything became very digital. It's what I did for the Ballet of Flanders as well. I was suddenly going like, okay, then we're making miniatures. We call them little videos that we create with one dancer, sometimes 2 dancers, if they are in a bubble together, if they are in a couple. We were able to make very small forms and give opportunity to different performers to still engage with the choreographer. I made 3 of them, and then they also met some other directors and choreographers, just in order to kind of keep being creative, keep having our art form out there. It's very tempting to step back and wait until it's all over, but I feel like we need to be present, even if it's just for 100 people or 200 people. It's okay. At the beginning of my career, like we're talking 20 years ago when I was on tour, I was sometimes in venues of 500 people, and I was performing for 50 people or 150 people. So I just remembered those moments. You know, I went in tour in China, and we didn't have a lot of people watching, and I just felt like, well, it's okay. We've been through some of these situations. Actually, remind me of past situations, and I felt like it's okay. If I was able to do it then, I will be able to handle that now.
I agree, Larbi. You mentioned something very interesting. All of us have, suffered this pandemic. We're all afraid, and we all feel that this sickness has taken something away from us. But then again, if you look at it in another way, it has also given us many things. What has it given Sidi Larbi Cherkaoui?
Well, I think it gave me a pause, which I never took, like I never stopped. And I was always, I was always weaving one project into the next, Sometimes I prepare 3 years in advance, some projects, just to keep my brain busy so that I'm never frustrated, because I always feel like if I get frustrated with a project, I just jump to the other one because there's something I can do there. And all of these projects were disappearing. I mean, it was insane. It was really, I've never been someone who's only put my eggs in one basket. I always had many projects happening because I'm very distrustful of the world. So I try to really make sure that something will hold me, because I've never really felt held. So I think it's psychological, a therapist would say. But what happened is that all of the baskets were getting pulled away.
Right.
Like I all at once. Like it was really, I had a project in Japan, got cancelled. I was supposed to do a project in Paris, got cancelled. I was supposed to, they were. I was starting on Broadway. The Jagged Little Pill was there for 4 months since, with the previews in November, but the original premiere was in December, January, February. In March, it stops. End of March, it stopped. So all these things that I had spent 3-4 years to prepare and to give love and to give, my time and energy and my soul to, all disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's so overwhelming. And then you have your collaborators that are in even worse of a situation than you. So you're also like, what can I do for them?
Right.
Like I've been literally sending money to friends in New York. You can't imagine this, because in Europe, at least, we have a subsidy system that helps us to somehow manage, there's, specific positions as an artist to just, even be unemployed, but still get a little bit of money because of the unemployment. But even that is problematic in New York, and definitely with the prices of everything there. So people, when they're not extremely productive, they are in the street. So it was intense. So for me, what did it gave me? It gave me, first of all, this pause, but then also a deeper awareness of everything that was what other people were going through. So I suddenly realized I'm lucky that I had built, I had for many years worked so hard. So I had finally paid off my house last year. Like it was a 20-year payoff, and it finally was paid off. And then I realized, oh my God, and this is the year I have no more work to do anywhere. So it was very, very symbolic. And I think for everybody, symbolic in a different way. So it just made me read the situation and be like, what can I do for others? And that will give me the purpose I have lost now, because I really felt like it took away my main focus, which was these projects that I was supposed to do. And so I thought, okay, what can I then do? And then should I go to India? Well, very difficult at that time, like even going
Not a
to
good idea.
yeah, nothing, like everything felt really, really problematic. While usually in a moment like this in your career or something, you would escape. But now the escape wasn't even possible. That was the problem. So then it was escaping in yourself. And I started to give, put some food outside for birds in my house. And it was beautiful to see just watching nature and watching time pass. And I indulged a little bit. I bought a piano for at home because I've always wanted one, and I was like, I'm just gonna invest in this. Like, I'm gonna do this. It's a huge investment for me, but I felt like, okay, I'm doing this, and I just kind of taking care of my soul as much as I could. It was a very lonely time.
Yeah.
Still is in a way, but at the same time, it also felt like maybe a lesson of humility. It's very humbling when the earth is taken off your feet. And
Exactly, it is. It is, Larbi. I'm sorry. I see you, talking about, exteriorizing a lot, trying to help, trying to lend a helping hand, you know. When you look at yourself now after this pandemic as a choreographer, as an artist, will the pandemic give you something to express? Have you thought about putting all of this in a choreographic work?
Well, I think like any traumatic experience for anyone, it's going to, it's going to definitely have an effect
Right.
on our choices. It already makes me produce in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It already makes me, I'm here in Noto in Sicily for a movie. We are tested on COVID 3 times a week.
Wow.
So like my nose is like it's just like every 2 days, actually, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just in order to keep the environment safe for the actors, everyone involved. So it's insane in terms of like, it definitely has an impact on my choices, like how I've realized how passionate I am about working, because I'm like, if you want to go through all of that, in order to get to this place or that place, like,
Right.
it made me realize how passionate I was about choreographing and about directing also. And
You didn't know it yet?
yeah, well, I always thought it was about survival. And then funnily enough, when survival was like stay home, I was still like, no, I'm going to go out there. So there was
Right.
something, I suddenly realized it's deeper than survival. It's actually, it's survival of my soul, maybe, or something.
The
So
survival of the adventure, the survival of doing things.
of doing this.
I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago about a very interesting passage of, the poet, the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke.
Yes, Rilke, yes.
Well, Rilke, one day a young poet gets close to him and tells him, Rilke, how do I know if I have what I need to become a poet? And Rilke's answer was very explicit. He said, if you cannot live when you don't write, it means that you are a writer. So creating for life is basically what he said. And this is more or less what I'm experiencing or sensing from you.
Yeah, it might be a good description.
Yeah.
That writer, I don't know what else to do but that. But I definitely feel like there's some truth in this idea of it being a necessity, a deeper necessity.
Yeah.
And it is it's been fascinating to be to feel myself kind of drawn to that, to that desire to keep producing. But to answer your question about like, does this inform my work, I think like many artists, it makes us more radical. Like we are dealing with so much feedback, like everything we do will have people liking it, people disliking it. There's a balance being made. People will say it's this or that, or it's not this or not that. And so you're constantly absorbing the feedback on something you have given the world. You just did that and you wanted to share this, and then suddenly it becomes a point to discuss, and you become an object to either be consumed, be appreciated, or be disliked, or be, so you have to stay graceful with all of this. You have to stay open to it. You have to grow, to learn. You have to also protect your soul from things that have nothing to do with what you actually try to do. And so
That's very interesting.
it's a very difficult exchange with the world, I would say. And I
Yeah.
think all artists, even pop artists, definitely they deal with this. So I always look around, like, how do they deal with this kind of problem? And because you just wanna do, and you hope for the best. And so but suddenly this, now it's like it's not even about the feedback, whether the feedback will be positive or negative. I'm already just thinking, like, what matters to me is this. And so you get a little bit more radical. You feel less inclined to worry about the feedback. And I think that was something that was quite welcome. Like, I was happy to suddenly realize there is way worse in life than having a bad review. And maybe in these last couple of years, I was so, in my little bubble, that seemed to be the things that I started to concern myself with. And I'm really happy that that's kind of out of the window for a while.
I'm happy also.
Yeah.
Larbi, because you're an artist, and you're creating a product basically, and it's interesting you talk about this, because I wanted to ask you something very similar. We create, as artists, different products that we present. In your case, you're creating choreographic works, and as you say, we can have two or three outcomes. One is that the product is liked. Two, that the product is not considered at all. And three, that the product is completely disliked. All of these outcomes bring emotional instability. Yes? Why then do we create? Why do you, Larbi, create pieces if you run this risk of being liked, disliked, not taken into account? Why do we do this?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question. I think on the one side, there is a hope always when you present yourself or you present your work, that someone will connect to it. Especially when you're a beginning artist, you just hope someone understands you, someone gets it, and someone connects to it. The way we do with everything in our lives, the way we speak, the way we dress, the way we are always kind of like wanting someone to get it. And then when a lot of people...
Can I interrupt you a minute? Can I interrupt you a minute? Is it that we want to connect, or is it that we want to be liked or loved?
I think it's many more things. Like, I think it's, on the one side, there's a communication element. Like, I know in my situation, in the beginning, I wanted to connect, but I also wanted to express a couple of things. I was dealing with, who I was and what I saw. And I felt like my first piece, Rien de Rien, for instance, a contemporary dance piece that was with 7, performers. And like, I really wanted to make sure, that we, wait, I have to have connection. Sorry, if not, it was gonna shut down. Electricity is important.
That's fine.
So I really felt like I wanted to address a couple of issues, and I felt like contemporary dance was a great place to address these issues. So I just wanted to put those problems on the table. And it was about regret. It was about my religious upbringing in balance with my desire to dance, and how the two, I wanted to kind of like meet. And it was about generation gaps, like an older lady with a much younger performer, and the difficulty of intergenerational dialogue. So there were subjects that I wanted to put on the table as a young maker 20 years ago, that up until today are still the things that I really care about. Is let's talk about this. Like when I did Medusa for the Royal Ballet, I remember really wanting to have the perspective of the of Medusa herself, and to see like how can I this monster that people perceive as being Medusa, but her story was quite tragic, and I felt like we need to understand the monsters in order to be able to to handle the world, but also to be able to create more compassion within us. And it's very hard. It's the hardest thing, like if you are dealing with politicians that seem to be so heartless or to seem to be so manipulative. It's really intriguing to go and be like, but what's going on in that brain, and how can I find humanity in all this inhumanity? So I feel like the it's not always about me. It's sometimes about me. It's sometimes about my experiences. Sometimes it's about what I see, and then if people don't see what I see, I get sad because I see it and they don't, and I feel like, and then maybe I think, am I something that's not there? So I doubt myself. But it's also interesting because it makes me pursue more truth. So I'm kind of like doing more research around it in order to not just be right, but actually understand where I was maybe wrong, or so it's a real process. And I think for me the dance can be a thing, a form in which I can explore all of these things. And then it's not just about being liked. Sure, I like to be liked. I like when I dance as a performer, I like that people say, hi, it's great when you move or something. I love that. But I really want the subjects or the emotions that matter to me to be transmitted. And then if people like me because I did that, great. But it's deeper than that. Like I feel like the older I get, the more I realize there are truths out there that are using us, that are wanting artists to embody this, for a moment, maybe in time, just to be like an oracle, that just goes like, okay, this is telling me to do this, and it might make me look crazy, but it's actually what needed to be said or needed to happen, and then time will tell if it was a positive thing that passed, or if it was a demon that passed, or if it was something, or if it was an ego that just got fluttered or whatever. Like it's really all about just listening, so I'm trying to stay connected, just feeling connected to what I feel is out there and is talking and is wanting me to transmit.
It is what you're saying, Larbi, is it somehow that your creative process is not Sidi Larbi Cherkaoui creating, but you're just an instrument of a higher being, of a higher instance, of a higher light?
Well, or it can also be a lower light. It's just about something. It's about something that feels like it's coming together in me, and then gets out and sees things. And it's always, I'm very collaborative, so I also work with other makers who sometimes have a wonderful idea that I'm like, yes, in order to make this possible, we need to do this and this and this. So at times I solve puzzles. At times I try to listen to this thing, and at times I just want to comment on stuff that I've been thinking about for a while, like or I want to be a voice of, like in 3S, for instance, there is a beautiful poem of Alice Ether, a slam poet from Australia that I really, really liked. And I felt like we need to put this into movement. People need to hear this because it's so beautiful. And so I didn't write it, she wrote it. And I felt like so excited to have the voice of a female poet that, comes from Australia, has, amongst other, Aboriginal roots. And I was really, really intrigued to just see how I could, be of use to that story that she said so well. And it really inspired me the way maybe some theater makers could be inspired by Shakespeare, And I feel like there's a lot of people doing that already, but maybe not enough people have kind of like locked into Alice Ether. So I could recommend to you to look into her world and look into her story, because it's really, really beautiful. And so at times I try to pick up on things and see there where I find an emotional connection, because she was also from two worlds. She was half Aboriginal, half white. Her father was from European descent, so there was a connection. Like she was of two worlds, and I felt like, oh, that's like me, and so nice to there's things sometimes you connect to people from other cultures that end up kind of representing very much what you feel you want to represent. So I feel like part of deep down, I want to be part of her tribe. Like I want to speak her truth, and I want to transmit this, and then I work with these fantastic dancers that are willing to go along on this ride. So it is. Yeah, I think my role is different every time. It is sometimes programming as an artistic director for the Ballet of Flanders, so I invite other choreographers. Sometimes I'm making movements, choreographing in the, let's say, the classical way. Sometimes I am proposing ideas that will make movement appear in the room, a bit more like Bausch. So I have learned different ways of creating that help me, and that hopefully help the process of the work to come to life, to make it come to life.
Sidi Larbi became a renowned choreographer and dancer when he was a young boy, and you had the fortune of creating your own company, Eastman, many years ago. But then maybe 5 or 6 seasons ago, you get the artistic director position of a huge company, a big company, a renowned company, Ballet Flanders. Tell me, how does Sidi Larbi Cherkaoui deal with his creative processes? And on the other side, deal with the administrative, bureaucratic aspects of directing a big company? How does this work in your mind and in your soul?
Well, first of all, no man is an island. So I always have a very strong team around me that helps me, and for the rest, I've been lucky to, since the beginning of my career, to be very much mentored by certain people. Like I always talk about Jean-Christophe Maillot at the Ballet de Monte Carlo. I've really been there a lot, and I learned so much from watching him manage his company with such vision, and it really, 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 it really inspired me, and it made me feel like, oh yeah, I can see how with ballet dancer one can make a community, because that's what I'm doing. Then when I saw Brigitte Lefebvre in the Paris Opera, also how she kind of like managed her company, it really with so many more dancers, and having lots of talks with her about, because she was going to retire, and so this also helped me. This was in 2013 when this was just before I took the job in 2015. So there were a couple of signals that made it made me kind of like feel like, okay, I'll throw myself into this. I was becoming 40. I felt like I have to be an adult, and when there's a proposal of a serious job, I should really consider this. I had been proposed the job a couple of years prior, like 4 years before or 3 years before, and I had declined it very politely because I did not feel ready. I felt like I can't do this. I don't have the tools. But the good thing was, because they had asked me then, it did stay in my mind as to how would I do this? And that's why I said no back then, because I was like, I was not able to. But somehow my brain started to find solutions. And so suddenly 3 years later, when the question was asked again, I felt like, well, it must mean that I have to say yes, because if not, it wouldn't come back. And I said yes. My whole life changed. It really, there was so much more work than I thought there was going to be. Like, I had an image, but it was much, much more. So I had to really adapt. I was fortunate enough to work together with Tamas Moritz, who is a senior, he was my associate, so we were together in this. So it was also new for him. So he did that for a couple of years, and it really helped us to kind of like go, what do you think? What do you think? I think this, you think that. So we were really like a team. And then when he left 2 years later, I had Kiki, another person who had a lot of experience in Flanders, because Flanders is also very particular. It's not always as easy as a foreigner to be working in it. Mm-hmm. And I had the luxury of mastering the language and understanding the mentality also in Antwerp. Also the history of the company, I knew it quite well. I had grown up while this institute existed, and I was nothing, next to this institution. And so I remember all the stories of the ballet school, and so it all kind of like existed next to me. But I always paid attention. I always followed it, and I always had a lot of respect for it. So it was there while I was in my contemporary world. But for instance, my ballet teacher, Marie-Louise Wilderijks, was a product of, amongst others, the history of that company. I mean, she kind of was one of the original dancers working with Jean Brabants, the original choreographer and artistic director, who, by the way, never presented any Swan or anything. She would always create her own works. She was very much like a kind of Martha Graham-esque character. She had her own journey as a choreographer for 20 years, developing things and sometimes inviting other choreographers. So knowing all of that, it made me say yes to doing the job 5 years ago, and to actually just accept the conditions. And then I realized how much I enjoyed programming, like really bringing in choreographers and like seeing like, okay, if the opera is doing this, then maybe we could be doing that. So those first 5 years were very formative on that level, because it was really nice to think about when to use an orchestra, what type of work to do, to look around also what other people were doing and feel like, so we're not doing that because that's what those people are doing, so we're going to do something else. And so it was there was a niceness, it was nice to do this. Of course, it takes time to, it's hard to be, when you are a leader, people are looking up to you, but also they are also, sometimes they don't like to be led. So it's like a balance of listening to them and at the same time sometimes saying, no, that's not what we're going to do, we're going to go there. It's also finding for me what is a ballet company in the 21st century. It's a very complicated conversation. Yeah, it's a very, very difficult element, because there is as much to say about tradition on the one hand, but there is also a lot to be said about, very particular cultural contexts of Flanders, dealing with what are the processes in Flanders of, makers like Anne-Theresa de Keersmaker or Alain Platel, or, all these makers that have developed their work in Flanders that also, are connected to the concept of Flemish art. So what is that? And how does ballet, or the technical elements of ballet, fit into that story of Flanders? So I was really intrigued in how to, if I would be the director of a company elsewhere, I'd probably have another philosophy, because I do feel it is really linked to it's linked to the actual context we're in, to the job,
the idiosyncrasy of your where you are,
where I am, and then also about how the world is evolving. Today we're dealing with a lot of knowledge around gender issues, male, female, and everything in between. There are so many things that are more complicated and more refined and more subtle than the way we have been brought up. So I think things like this really interest me as an artist, and make me feel like we have to be attentive to this new awareness that's developing in the next generation. And part of the conversation around that, that's also why I choreographed Girl, the movie of Lucas de Hond, in which it was a character of a transgender person in a ballet company, and I loved choreographing that because it is so difficult when you don't feel like a boy, but you feel like a girl, and at the same time there is this disconnect with what you're allowed by the exterior, the world around. So it really moved me to work on this project, and I felt like we need to be more in tune with the world of today. So I've been constantly kind of like pushing that narrative. The same about Black Lives Matter and the whole, like when you look at the ballet company, how many Black people do you really have? And it's all kind of linked to a form of exclusion that needs to be addressed, and needs to be, I think everybody needs to kind of like look in the mirror a little bit and go like, what am I actually doing for this, and can I do more, and isn't that my moral obligation to be part of this, the growth of society? Yeah, there's a lot of responsibilities that go with with power, and so there's not a lot of time to enjoy the power because you're constantly feeling like, I need to do the right thing, I need to do the right thing, and that's that's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Larbi, why dance? Why dance? I mean, if we think about it, it's a small art form. You have been working in the music industry during these last few years, which is a huge industry. Why dance? What's the importance? Does it save our soul? Why dance? Why move? Why create choreographic pieces?
I think our societies are not built on the body. Like, we are not really honoring the body. We are not living in ways that make us do anything. If anything, the world is built to make the body do as little as possible, to be as lazy as possible. Like, everything is there. You don't have to run somewhere. You don't have, like, everything is like just set up for us. Sadly, only the able bodies to kind of be as comfortable as we can. So it's terrible because in a way the world's not even built for disabled people in a right way. So it's really it's problematic. But for able bodies, everything is just super practical.
Yeah.
And at times it kind of loses the potential of the body. The body has so much potential to really express itself, to develop itself. Like, we are deep down, we are animals. There is an animal in us, but I see this animal with a big A, like the nobility of the animal. I feel like dance kind of like brings out that grace that a body can have. And any shaped body can be graceful when it finds this organic, natural way of moving, which for each of us might be even different. And even depending on where you are from, you're going to move differently. It's like animals, like a certain birds fly in one way and other birds fly in another way. And I love the diversity of movement in order to develop yourself, to express yourself, to communicate. Also, there's something about dance that's very universal. Like, I feel like when you see someone dance, even if people laugh at times, when someone's dancing, I love it because it feels like, yeah, you are understanding something, because that's why you're laughing. You're understanding something of the situation, and then maybe there's a defense mechanism. There is you're meeting yourself and your own blockages. But there's something very beautiful about dancing together, dancing for someone, seeing someone dance. I feel like there's a way to exist in dancing that is unlike anything else we can do in our lives. We can have this conversation, and it's nice. It really makes us go to places. But when you see someone move, the place we're going is so primal and so so mystical, almost like it's like a mystery. It's the unconscious, and I feel like it's really exciting when that unconscious is being tapped into as you're moving, or if this unconscious is being triggered by watching someone dance. So I love very unconventional dances, because my problem is when my brain kind of registers, oh yeah, that's this style and that, it just kind of like frames it. And
Right.
but when people go beyond the technique, when they go into a place of, I don't know, revealing their fragility, revealing their power, revealing their, then I get so excited, because I feel like this is more, this is more. There's something magical that's happening. And the funny thing is, people with no technique can only go to that place. They can only go to that
Yeah,
place.
they don't have the tools.
They have no other tools. So
Right.
basically, like when you see a child dance, you are the most moved, because it is the untapped potential that is released in any form. And so there's something fascinating about technique needs to be there to support the channeling of that. But when technique holds you hostage, you are done for. So it's like really, really interesting how to figure out how to, how to communicate, how to really dance, like what is really dance. It's a good question, but it's a magical moment that has no it's a mystery. It's really a mystery. When those moments happen, we are lucky to witness them.
Yeah, and lucky to do them as well. Lucky to be able to dance. Dancing on stage is one thing, which is very pleasurable, but also dancing alone in your bedroom might be even more pleasurable.
Yeah. I think at times it can also be very therapeutic. It can be a way to, to get energies out. There is so many
Right.
like research done around trauma, like problems that you have put into your body, and how the cells need a physical release that you can stimulate by moving. So dancing can really, really be healing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Larbi, how do we heal COVID? um,
Well, I think it's linked to like analyzing COVID. Like I think it's really, really up to us to go into the science of it and seeing like what is actually happening to us, what is this doing to us, and to understand the multiplicity of the human body, like how much is happening in the body. We are a community. Our bodies are much more than just our idea of ourselves. Like we are communities of viruses and bacteria, and all these things are coexisting. And it's quite overwhelming when you are zooming into it. But I think it can also be something that can be very informative to understand that we are already a community. We are, and it's taking care of that community in the best possible ways. If right now it means helping and saving each other by keeping our distances, then that is what we need to do. This is not the first time in history that something like this is happening. It's maybe the first time that we are experiencing it.
Right.
It just means that we have to be patient for the chemistry of it to unravel, to reveal itself to us, to let researchers do their work, hopefully with good intentions, with the desire to find solutions that are that are helpful for all of us. We have to kind of have faith in humanity, and have faith in our resilience and in our capacity to handle this stress. I am more worried about what the stress of COVID does than what COVID does.
Yeah, I agree.
I think people need to find ways to deal with the stressful new reality we are in. Yeah.
Yeah, Larbi, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I know you're very busy at the moment, so your time is limited.
I have to go in a meeting. Yes. So,
I can hear that.
yeah.
But I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your creations. I must say to you, I've told you this before, but I want the audience to hear as well. For me, you're the most awesome choreographer in the last century.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you as a choreographer. I appreciate you as an artist, and more than all, I appreciate you as a person. I consider you my friend, and it's been a pleasure being with you, Larbi.
Let's speak soon again. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, be healthy, Larbi.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you.
Yo no sé si te importa a ti, yo me siento bien desde que nací.
Bien, 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 bien. El tiempo rodeado de cubanos. Imagínate, man.